G'day, folks. AoS Coach here, and I am back. I've finished run my GT, and I have something special to kick back off our episodes. We are previewing the new Stormcast Eternals Battletome. I'm excited to get into this. This is a faction that I've been playing. Actually, I was playing it leading up to 4th edition, so I'm actually excited to kind of peer a little bit to see what is in this Battletome. Actually, I know what's in the Battletome. You don't know what's in the Battletome, but talk about it and talk about what's been added. We have a terrain feature. Ignore the 3D prints that I've converted for my own little faction, but here's your new 3D, your terrain feature. Anyway, I have my special guest here is James O'Brien, the first Forge from the Tough Crowd Chamber. You might know him as one of your TOs at a number of events. You know, you've been supporting the World Championship. You've supported a bunch of the Games Workshop events. You've supported Nova. You're everywhere. You're in Team Canada for Worlds. You are, second place on the ITC for Stormcast. You are everywhere, James. And I'm excited to get into this book because there's some good stuff. There's been a small changes. There has been some new units. And I know you and I have been talking a little bit because some of the armies of Renown have got us thinking a little differently to go, do we stick to the allegiance? Because obviously, like, you know, we've got the dragon one already, right? Like if you want to run dragons are there. But there's never been anything else for the other types of units. But there is something for us now. But James, kick us off. Who are you? What got you into Stormcast? And introduce yourself to the world.
Will do. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Coach. James O'Brien. As Coach said, I've been playing Stormcast for quite a long time. I played them back in 2021, 22 when the Dragons first came out. I jumped in there and was one of the first with the Dragon Tyranny that led for a while and got into the top 8 at LVO with them doing that. We decided after the event that I was best overall. They didn't award a best overall, but Tomo and I talked about it after, and he was like, yeah, okay, you probably have that one in the bag. And then I took Stormcast to AoS Worlds last summer, this summer, in fact, summer 2024 with Team Canada. Interesting build with that one. I was running a bunch of Stormstrike chariots, 4 chariots. I was running 5 Vexlord banners, and I was running 3 squads of Annihilators. So very much a sort of Super Friends, lot of Mortal Wound output, very different to how Stormcast play now.
And assuming that Warcom doesn't ruin this for us, there actually is a Super Friends build as well in here, which is for the people like me who just likes running big things. There's a Super Friends build. Before we get into the content, I just really want to do some disclaimers. Games Workshop obviously sent this to me in advance, no cost, won't see this. So what we're going to share is our honest opinion. So thank you, Games Workshop, for sending this. They also sent some of the Palladors, so I've been building the Palladors. Got our new Knight-Azyros, aka we've also got, well, there's 2 versions, right? You've got the hero version, Tornus, and you've got the Knight-Azyros, Azyros, depending on where you're from. The terrain feature, so I've been building that. So you'll notice a few kit bash and conversions. Mine, ironically enough, fun story. When I started my Stormcast 3 years ago, I was leaning into this Black Templar Sisters of Battle type build, which is essentially Ruination now. So like the candles, and I'm just like grabbing all the bits from Black Templar and Sisters, and I'm 3D printing, and I'm like, yes, finally I have an aesthetic for me that I was slightly ahead of the curve.
I love it. I think the aesthetic is great. I love the sort of slightly grimdark aspect that you've got with the Ruination chamber now. I also, and I don't want to get preachy, but I love the fact that GW have led with basically representation in the Stormcast faction, be that female, be that people of color. I think that's really important for our game. And I love that one of my favorite factions are leading the way with it.
They slot straight in. Like, actually, I've got a heap of, all of my heroes are got heads, so I've still got the old, I don't know if you remember this. When I was at Forge World many years ago, I picked up the Forge World heads. There were Stormcast heads of male and female. They slot straight in perfectly. Absolutely love them. And I've started 3D printing some alternative Sisters heads for my prosecutors to make them like Valkyrie kind of units. But
yeah.
Like it's a little blind. Anyway, this is the Stormcast battle. You can see how excited I am. I legitimately am excited. By the way, if you are excited as well and you're thinking about buying it, Warp Fire minis in. Butcher that up. Warp Fire minis in the USA, Element Games in the UK, and Gap Games in Australia. There is an affiliate link. You support the channel, you get your support and from great suppliers as well. So thank you all for the support and appreciate it. And Patreon and YouTube if you want to support and you're not buying the Stormcast, whatever. This is a good book. Let's get into it. James, what's your thoughts so far on 4th edition Stormcast? What have you found playing it?
What I found playing it, and the way I deliberately designed my lists from the index, was I wanted to lean into all the 4th edition interactivity. So in my list, it was kind of combined armsy, but I was making sure that I had a priest because I wanted to be able to take advantage of the fact that like Stormcast Forward has always had some of the best priests in the game. Take advantage of the fact you can pray in or chant in your opponent's turn using a command point. Same with the wizard. You want a decent wizard in there so that you can summon those manifestations so that you can cast in your turn effectively and in your opponent's as well. And then again, another strength of Stormcast, good shooting unit. You really need a good reinforced shooting unit in a sort of a balanced 4th edition list. And with long strikes, I was always leaning straight into a reinforced unit of long strikes. So I'm firing in my turn, using covering fire to fire in my opponent's turn. Using the priority target bonus you can get onto that unit so that they're often hitting on 2s and winning on 2s, doing a whole load of damage in your opponent's turn as well. So those are the kind of things that I was initially starting with Stormcast. I think the book now gives us a lot more options and different ways to approach it.
Yeah, it's been a real interesting journey for me because I think the first thing I noticed was not having the Hammers ward. Like when we went from 3 to 4, and like I was playing Hammers mostly because I wanted your Dracoth units as battle line.
Yep.
So obviously, you got used to the 6-up ward and like losing it. It's like, oh wow, like damage is getting through. Obviously, rend has gotten reduced a little. There's not as much save stacking. And then I noticed like the long strike range went shorter. I'm like, oh gosh, Lord, there's no mortals on 6s. What is going on?
Yeah.
I play with Tempestors. I fell in love with Indrasa. She's like my girlfriend here in this. I love Indrasa. The carnage I've seen with that spear of hers.
Yeah.
She's so good. What else? Like it's actually fun because like Liberators, Vindictors and Vanquishers all fill a really good spot. I'm like,
really
I want
good
to include
unit.
them.
Yeah.
Prosecutors, really good. Unfortunately, the Dracoths, I'm like, yeah, I like you, but I do like the Palladors better.
Palladors are superb. With the shooting, with the multiple options for shooting with the Palladors, they are a great. They're one of those index units. You're like, yeah, there's definitely some legs there. I also particularly liked the I think Krondys is superb. Like getting the +2 to cast. There's not that many +2s to cast kicking around in 4th edition in a way that there was in 3rd edition. So getting a +2 to cast with him, partnering up with a unit of Praetors that you're getting 5-up wards on both of those. Suddenly you've got really durable, high quality wizard who also slaps in combat. So you don't mind pushing him forward and getting him into combat and getting him in there doing the damage as well as popping out the manifestations to block out your opponent from deep striking in and getting behind you. Krondys was a really good index option for me.
I really like Krondys as well. I know one of my questions to you was going to be Krondys or Karazai. I know Discord. My Discord is obsessed with Karazai, but me, I'm a Krondys guy.
Yeah, same.
There's a lot of like the Stormcast problem is that you've still got a lot of really good choices. Like I just have too many points. I have too many units, not enough points. And I think that's the challenge. And I guess the context maybe for everyone listening to this is that we all have our preferred style. Whether you like dragons, whether you like foot troops, whether you like big heroes, we are going to cover the book as best as we can. But the context is going to change, right? Depending on what you like to run and how you like to run it. And are you someone who loves to alpha strike someone, drop down your annihilators and just go in for the charge? Are you a slow burn type of player? Do you like the movement shenanigans of Vanguard Chamber or even your dragons? Like there's so many great ways to build Stormcast. It allows you to play with it long term, but also it can create challenges. Like I want everything, but I'm limited to 2,000 points, which is a blessing and a curse. All right, last question, and I'm going to bring up the book because I know everyone who's watching this wants to get into it. Is what was your gut reaction when you were looking through the book? Like, are we in a good position? Because win rates for Stormcast haven't been that great for the first couple of months of the of fourth edition. Do you think that we are a powerhouse? Is this a 5-0 army? Is it some heavy changes that have been either positive or negative? Like, are you disappointed? Like, what's your feel reading the book?
I'll answer this in reverse. I'll talk about my feel reading the book first, and then go back to whether I think that turns us into a powerhouse.
All right.
My feel from reading the book is that Stormcast now play the way I've always wanted them to play. There is a ton of movement shenanigans. You are bouncing units all around the board in different phases, and like this whole kind of like lightning warrior, like thunder strikes and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of that going on in the way that the book now plays. And I think that's definitely the way that Stormcast should be going. And what I think about I think we're already in a good spot even before the book came out. And whilst the win rate has been kind of modest at the sort of 45% type level, I think there's a whole lot of accessibility about Stormcast because they're in every starter set. So there's a lot more games played with Stormcast by players who are either newer or just picking up the game or moving over from another game than there might be with other armies where it's more experienced AoS players leaning into them. So I think there's a little bit of that kind of Space Marine effect on the Stormcast win rates. And I think increasingly, from what I'm hearing, and I share the opinion, a lot of top players are starting to think there's really some depth in Stormcast. So there's really some opportunities to play in every mission, not be a one-trick pony, and so therefore go long in big GTs. So I think the 5-0s, the 6-0s, 7-0s, 8-0s are coming for this army.
I think you're right. People are cracking the code. I think with a book as deep as Stormcast, it can be hard to find the synergies and the combinations and what works, especially as the meta kind of settles, right? You know, we had Nighthorn and Lumineth really take the charge. You know, we've had a bunch of factions, you know, Gits with Trogs and things like that. And Stormcast is a really good army to respond to the current meta. So as the meta is starting to settle, we've got the right tools, and now we get to understand which of the tools do we pull from our roster that's going to best suit us to those 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 performances. So I think you're in a really good spot. And I think you and I both agree that they are racing higher up to the podium. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like the LVOs and the Adepticons of the world and the bigger events. You'll start to see them podiuming a lot more.
I think so.
Alrighty, let's get into this. And let's get, look, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with what's changed. We're then going to look at the terrain feature. We're going to look at the new war scrolls, and then we will look at some of the armies of renown and things like that. So that'll be the flow of this episode. Are you ready, James?
I am. I was born ready. This is my jam now. So let's go.
All right. These are all of the things that I have noticed. So excited. He's dropped his drink already. These are the things that I have noticed. I've gone through every war scroll. There's a lot. So give me some credit if you miss something, if I miss something. But here are all the changes that I have noticed. So starting off with the battle formation in Thunderhead Host, it's now add 1 to hit rolls for attacks in combat made by friendly warrior chamber units while they're wholly within 12 inches of any friendly non-hero, non-beast. That's the difference there. It's the non-beast thing. So you can't use your Griff Hounds or your bloody Aether Wings to now get that +1 boost. James, any comments on that?
Makes sense. Like it's not that much of a nerf, and it just ties in with how beasts are being represented in the game at the moment.
Yeah, I think if we continued having beasts in that role, I think you start to see the value. Like Aether Wings were already too expensive, in my opinion. What are they, 90 points, 100 points?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they need to go down a little bit. But if we start including rules like that, I think you start seeing them around that 120, and you lose the value. You lose the value.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know whether we'll come onto it, but I think like Griff Hound's pretty good. Like you're getting 12 wounds for 80 points.
I take 2. I take 2 units. Take the flank. They are perfect. Take the flank, screen or seize the center. So good. Big fan. Second one is the heroic trait Shock and Awe. So it's gained a second paragraph. So the second paragraph is each time this unit is set up using Signs of the Storm ability, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target this unit for the rest of the battle. Oh, sorry, this is the second paragraph. In addition, this is the second part. Each time a friendly Stormcast unit is set up wholly within 12 inches of this unit using Signs of the Storm ability, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target that unit for the rest of the battle. So you've basically got an extension of the Signs of the Storm ability through a triggered hero.
Yep. Makes sense, doesn't it? Like yeah. It doesn't make it particularly like overwhelmingly powerful, but I still think you're probably going on Void of the Heavens most of the time with your heroic traits, but still pretty good.
It helps with the people who are building around Annihilators. So you've got like Imperaton or you've got Gardas, for example. You know, for that type of build where you're putting all of your ducks on the table at one go and then you're just pushing forward. This gives that Lord Imperaton or Guard. Oh, no, not Gardas. Gardas is unique. My point is like you get that benefit.
Yeah, you get the buff. Yeah.
Nice. It's not going to be game changing. The other one is the heroic trait, as you mentioned, Envoy of the Heavens. So this one's a minor change where it says now friendly Stormcast units. So previously it was just friendly units. Now it's defined as Stormcast units.
Hadn't even noticed that it was just friendly before. So yep, this makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, so obviously with the likes of Callus and Toll, or if you're bringing in any other regiments of Renown, that will change slightly. But yeah, I'm just rereading it. If a friendly unit was destroyed in the previous turn, pick a visible. Yeah, so it's a minor wording change. But I'm calling it out because people are using Callus and Toll, so you don't get it anymore.
No, that's a good observation.
I told you I went through it all. I probably missed a few, but these are the ones that I picked up. Everblaze Comet, casting value of 8 now, used to be 7. I didn't see any changes on the actual Everblaze Comet War Scroll, so I don't know what justifies the Comet going up, considering most people are taking the universal manifestations.
Yeah. I was leaning into Morbid Conjuration with Stormcast beforehand. I don't see that change. Well, it probably will change from Morbid, but I don't necessarily know that. Yeah,
I've been doing Primal because I've wanted the extra healing with the
Life Swarm. Yeah, I think that's
Life Swarm and
maybe
Vexillor.
where I'm landing.
I don't understand this change. I really don't understand this Blaze Comet change. All right, James and I both confused as hell. I don't know why. The Lord Celestin on Dracoth, the weapon has changed now to be a crit auto wound. It was anti-infantry. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad little build. I prefer the Drakespawn Templar in that role, but I know some people do run the Lord Celestin on Dracoth. Was it?
No.
Yeah, I was just double checking a rule. I'm like, was it the Dracoth or was it the bloody yeah, anyway. The Praetors, so the Praetor rule has changed to soul-bounded, so this unit can use this ability while it's reserved. So it's lost that rule, which I thought was fascinating.
That's a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was actually a good change, to be honest. I thought having that on, because that was what it was like in 3rd edition. And then they added that, which was a nice rule, but now it's gone.
Now it's gone. Yeah. I think there is very, very few occasions where you can actually have an ability that applies when something is off the board. And so I think they're very much coming at a premium. And I think this reflects that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just a weird one. This one was a fascinating one to me. The Vanguard Raptors with Hurricane Crossbow. So the change is in Coordinated Strike. So now you pick an enemy unit that has any damage points allocated to it this turn by attacks made by the Hurricane Crossbow to be the target. Add 1 to wound rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Vanguard Chamber units that target that enemy unit for the rest of the turn. So it's not a tweak, it's a complete rewrite. So
Mm.
basically what's happened is it used to be add +1 to wound for units shooting attacks if the target, like if they were in combat with a Vanguard chamber. So it's almost the whole reverse, right? I think this is a good change.
I think so, yeah. Just the sequencing of it means that you're potentially, I think you have more opportunities to use it the way that it's now written than it was before. Well, when we talk about the terrain feature, we'll come on to my thoughts about Vanguard Chamber, but I think this is a good change that does actually probably benefit you.
Yeah, I see more situations where I use the Vanguard Raptors with Hurricane. Mind you, everyone goes long strikes over the Hurricanes anyway, but I feel like the sequence here makes more sense than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other small changes, well, one small change and one call out. Aether Wings have increased their movement characteristics. Now they're movement 14, where they used to be movement 12.
Yeah, that's seems more realistic. Like the birds, like they're falcons, they should be flying all over the place. And
it's a quality of life change. Like it's not going to be game changing, but it'll help.
And given the passive effect they have to add one to hit rolls for shooting for Vanguard Chamber units while they're within 9, that's going to open it up a little bit more for you in terms of where you can actually get them to deliver that buff.
Yes. And then the last not change, I just wanted to call it out because some people saw the model and thought that there was going to be a change. The Lord Relictor is not Ruination Chamber. So I saw a lot of speculation that people thought because the model looked very Ruination that it was going to be a Ruination model. It's not. It's not.
Yeah. There's an aesthetic that says it might fit in there, but it wasn't. It still isn't, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. Agreed wholeheartedly. Cool. All right. And by the way, yes, it is Lord Celestin on Dracoth. Like I'm like, oh, please don't tell me I made a mistake and it was meant to be the Lord Celestin on Stardrake. No, it's still Lord Celestin. Anyway, yeah, I used it once. The fight first was nice. Move along.
Yeah.
I tried it. I'm like, I've tried Extremer's Chamber. Those bloody Dracoths are expensive. Anyway. Let's talk about the terrain feature now. We have a brand new first off terrain feature. It's the Stormreach Portal, 12 health, 4+ save, counts as cover and impassable. The key feature here is pick a friendly non-monster Stormcast unit that is not in combat and is wholly within 6 inches of the terrain feature to be the target. You can then remove the target from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units.
It's amazing. This to me unlocks Stormcast being the army they should be. I also start to think about the sequencing of it. It's an ability in the movement phase. I don't think it's a core ability. So even if you're in combat, you retreat out of combat, stay wholly within 6 of it, teleport away. This is giving you that lore appropriate Stormcast feel where you're controlling the battlefield, your dudes are appearing in like lightning bolts hitting the ground, and suddenly there they are. There's a group of Stormcast there to charge in and ruin your day. This is superb. This is exactly this is everything I hoped when it was first revealed at Nova back at the end of August, and it's exactly what I wanted it to do. So I couldn't be happier with this. I love the fact that it also gives that kind of like a small number of heroes against the horde mentality, because you're gonna have some units around this protecting this Stormreach portal, and that's going to then unlock the ability for you to bounce your big hitters around the board. It's fantastic. And I love the fact that you don't roll a dice. You know, if your unit satisfies the criteria for being able to teleport, off it goes. The only thing that I would say for those people who are really leaning into Vanguard Chamber, maybe there's a little bit less point doing that now, given that if you wanted to teleport a Vanguard Chamber unit, you had to roll a 3-up. Now you can just do it with this. Yes, you're restricted to being wholly within 6 inches of this piece of terrain, but at the same time, that's what it's giving you. I think it's great. I really do.
Wouldn't you do this before you declare the retreat, though? You would do this at the start of the movement phase?
No, you do it in your movement phase. It's an ability. You can choose the sequencing of them. It's only the combat phase where your abilities are gated by ability, then do the thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I love about it is it unlocks, because you and I were talking about this prior to recording. Do I need to take a Lord Relictor anymore for Translocate? That's a question. That's not a statement. I'm not saying drop your Lord Relictor, but you don't have to take it if that's what you're taking it for. Alternatively, that Lord Relictor can now be casting something different, or chanting something different, or doubling up. You translocate and then you use the Stormreach Portal to teleport. It means that you've still got teleporting abilities if that Lord Relictor or the priest has disappeared. What else? Like, it gives you some late game movement shenanigans. Like, you're on the table, you had your Vindictors holding an objective for this first battle round. The battle is kind of swung in your favor. You can now teleport them over somewhere else. There's so many abilities, and it's free, right? It's not a choice, it's free.
Yeah, so much you can do. The Lord Relictor question is a really good one. I still think there's value in a Stormcast Priest, because Translocate was always what people zoned in on, because that was potentially the most game impactful. But less weapons for the extra attacks. There's not a lot of extra attacks kicking around in Stormcast. There never has been. And then also a heal. Again, there's like the other prayers are very valuable as well. And a Lord Relictor is still one of the few things out there that's going to get you bonuses to chance in the game. So you get him next to a place of power. You're rolling every turn. You're trying to build up those chanting pool points so that you can start having all of your units do extra attacks or teleporting. In this, well, not so much teleporting anymore. Now you've got this, but healing or adding extra attacks. So I think still value in a priest, but this is really making it feel very Stormcasty for me. So I love it.
Dig it. It's free. Stormcast people, go buy it. I think that's the key, right? Like, there's going to be a bunch of things we're going to talk about. It's like, oh, do I need Tornus? Do I need this? Do I need that? This, obviously, go buy it. And shout out to anyone who goes to my affiliate partners. Any final comments on the Stormreach? It's really cool, just as a modeling perspective. It comes basically as a whole bunch of little pieces that come together. It's two sides, comes together like a mirror. It's quite easy, to be honest. Like, it probably took me probably half an hour. Like, it actually wasn't that hard to do.
I love it. No, I think it's really good. The only thing I would say, like, Stormcast players, if you've only played Stormcast, there are downsides to faction terrain in 4th edition. It gives your opponents something that, let's say you're screening your army well, you're tucking your important stuff away. This gives people the opportunity to charge it and then pile into you. So you do have to think very carefully about the positioning of it. Otherwise, it just becomes almost like a sort of a speed up to get your opponent's models into the things that you want to keep them away from. So be very careful about the positioning of it.
All right, and my last comment would be that this gives you a good option, right? Because when you're putting stuff in the sky with Scions, you've still got to put stuff on the table. This now gives you some alternative movement, especially if you're playing a low drop army, where you can still Scions and then use something to teleport, and potentially that the Lord Imperator, for example, maybe you don't have to deploy it in the sky anymore. Maybe we put it down on the table, use the Stormreach, get it in range, then drop the Annihilators down, if that's your build.
Yeah.
So just a consideration, like what this can do for you. I think it's got a lot of good play options, but I am actually excited. Next up, we have our bird friend. So we've got two builds. We've got Iridan. The Witness, and we've got an alternative build that I'll show you in a second. So what have you got here? You've got a priest. So the other one isn't a priest. This one is a priest, a one chanter priest. It has a, 12-inch move, 3 up save, control 5, health of 12, 2 melee attacks, no shooting attacks. Pretty decent. I don't quite mind that. Got a really interesting prayer there. So prayer of the witness, make a chanting roll on a 4 up for the rest of the turn. Each time a friendly Ruination Chamber uses the fight ability, while it's wholly within 18, it can heal D3. If the chanting roll was 8, you heal flat 3, and they get a 6 up ward. There's also 2 other abilities. You should probably know your Ruination Chamber ability by now if you've used any of the Ruination models. But the other one that I really like is the Dark Flight, which is once per turn at the end of the turn, pick an enemy unit in combat with this model, roll a dice. If you exceed the health characteristic, so it's a 2 wound or 2 health hero model, you roll 2 up. Exceed, so you got a 3 up. One model would have to is slain, and then you get to retreat and not take any mortal damage. Go for it, James. What are you thinking?
I think he's great. Obviously, we don't fully know the points yet, but I can't imagine he's going to be cheap. But you get so much utility out of this guy. One of the things that I look for in Stormcast is Ren 2, and particularly now in a world of limited save stacking, having Ren 2 on both sets of Iridan's attacks is fantastic. Particularly given that do you remember the reveal video for this? Matt and the crew talked about Iridan being like a buff piece and a facilitator, but I think he's pretty good in combat as well. From my perspective, like 4 attacks, 3/3s, Ren 2, D3 with crit mortal. Like he can put some hurt out. And the bird Ariax hits on 4s as all the monsters do now, but then winning on 2s, Ren 2 for 2 damage, crit 2 hits, like can do some damage. And you want that because you want Iridan in combat, because you're looking to use that Dark Flight ability in every turn. Your turn, your opponent's turn. Like that's such a game changer. Like, because remember, he's with retreat, he has fly, so a retreat isn't him coming back, it's him going anywhere he wants to. He's going to fly over whatever he's left in combat with. He can go wherever he chooses. The prayer is really good. I mean, if you're taking him, you're probably leaning into Ruination Chamber. So once you get that 4 up, and remember, you can stack points in your opponent's turn by doing some chanting. You're going to be healing your Ruination Chamber units, and you're giving them 6 up ward for the 1 or 2 that you don't have a 5 up ward on, because you've got multiple sources of getting that 5 up ward now. And so I think, yeah, Iridan's really good. I'm traditionally reluctant to play the named characters in competitive lists, because you often lose the ability to then take a you don't now, unless as long as you've got 1 single hero, but you often lost like a warlord trait or an artifact, something like that. But I think this guy gives you so much utility, a lot of movement shenanigans, decent combat, great prayers. He's doing what I like, and he's playing in every phase of the game.
A couple of considerations I've got is it's obviously playing a very similar role to is it Ionis, the priest dragon, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now obviously they're different. Yes, they're different, but they're playing that mobile priest unique hero role, and you know Ionis has shooting, you know, and the soul burn stuff. This obviously has some different stuff, so pick your flavor if you're looking for an alternative. It will likely be in a very similar price point to, say, Prime, Indrasa, Bastion, Ionis. So I would imagine you're paying somewhere between, I don't know, 300 to 400 points. So depending on where it lands, obviously pick and choose the flavor for you. And then if you're paying 400 points, are you better off with a Star Drake or a Krondus or a Karazai? I'll leave that up to you. But I think as a War Scroll, it's solid. It brings some interesting mobility. Like the Dark Flight to me and the prayer really brings some value to this army. but I don't think it's auto-include. Like, my list is never starting with this model.
No.
Unless I'm running, like, obviously Ruination Chamber, then I think it definitely complements really well.
So, yeah, you're right. I like it.
I like it. I like it. I just don't think it's auto-include. But we'll pause for a second because James did say you like the non-unique ones sometimes. Let's compare it to the alternative build, which is the Lord-Vigilant on Morrgryph. So you'll notice that the weapons profile is a little less, probably doesn't do as much damage. Like, you'll notice that the glaive, for example, has gone to Rend 1, where the alternative would be Rend 2 on the other kit. It's not a priest, so there's no priest ability. So this is probably going to come in a little bit cheaper, you would imagine. I don't know what, 50 to 80 points cheaper than whatever that model was. Couple of rules that you want to know about. You have the direct the assault. So pick a friendly non-hero Ruination Chamber unit wholly within 12. For the rest of the turn, while it is wholly within 12, you add 5 to the control score. And then you have Vice-like grip. So in the charge phase, it's the Rampage. Pick an enemy non-monster hero in combat. Roll 2d6. If the result exceeds the health characteristic, it's going to have strike last. And the target cannot be picked to receive any commands. So shutting down all out attack, all out defense, or anything else it has available to it. So you made a comment before about taking non-named versions of the model. What's your thoughts on this? And then what's your thoughts comparatively to the unique version, Iridan?
I am not blown away by this. In all honesty, I think the model looks better than the named one. I love the dynamic posing with that hallowed glaive, sort of like striking downwards into your target. But then it's Rend 1, and yes, it goes up to 3 damage, 5 attacks, great. But Rend 1 bounces off so much. So I was a little disappointed by that, and obviously the Morrgryph works the same way as the named one in combat. I like direct assault. I don't know. It feels like that should be a guy with a banner standing at the back, though, that has that type of ability, rather than well, it does. Like, hey, if you want to do that, take a Vexillor.
I was literally going to say that's the reason I take the Vexillor, is the healing and the extra control score.
And then Vice-like grip. Situational is probably a polite way to describe it. Your opponent's probably not having you charge a 5-wound hero with this model, and that's the only time it's actually gonna do anything. Yeah, so I'm not. I go back on what I said. I'm all about the name character on this one, rather than the generic version.
Unless there's 100-point difference,
yeah,
unless it's like unless it's super cheap, the value of getting a priest, getting what we just saw about, okay, Dark Flight is valuable, Prayer of the Witness, valuable, access to the Stormcast Priest lore, valuable, the extra damage that you do through the Axe of the Final Threshold, valuable. I think, to me, again, unless the points is incredibly different, I'm taking Iridan every day of the week over the Lord-Vigilant.
I agree. And the Lord-Vigilant on the Griff Charger, the smaller Lord-Vigilant, he's got Rend 2 on his axe. But...
All right. So I think if you're going to buy this model, folks, we are both recommending you build it as Iridan. Obviously, build it however you want to build it. But if I was going to run these models, I think we both agree that this is going to add more value.
Dependent on the points.
And you'll get your points just before the Battletome hits the shelves on Warcom, like Skaven. So no, it's coming soon. We're making a wild guess. I would not pay any more than 300 for this. This to me feels like maybe Free Guild General and Griffin price. What's that? 260 to 290 somewhere.
I'd say
no more than 300, because that's in Drasa, that's in Bastion, that's Gardas, that's their money. Any other comments on our Lord-Vigilant on Morrgryph? It's fine.
I mean, I'll buy one and paint it because it's a brilliant looking model. But...
Yeah. I'd even buy one for cities just to have as an alternative free guild general on Griffin. It is beautiful. It's beautiful. Alrighty, next up we have, so we've got Tornus. So we've got the unique version of, well, this actually is Tornus, but it is the unique version of what is going to be the Knight-Azyros or Azyros. So Tornus has a shooting attack. It has a melee attack. Shooting attack is quite good, actually. Range 12, 1 attack, 3s, Ren 2 for D3, crit 2 hits, 12-inch move, 3 up save, control score of 5, 8 health. And then it has the same weapon, or has the same weapon name, but in melee, 5 attacks, 3s, Ren 2 for flat 2. So quite good. Couple of other rules you want to know. It is Ruination Chambers, so rinse and repeat. We know this rule. We have the Herald of Redemption. So pick a friendly Ruination Chamber unit wholly within 12. James, I can hear your keyboard. If this unit uses the rally command, you receive 3 additional rally points. In addition, you've got the Light of Sigmar, which you roll so in the combat phase, roll a dice on a 3-up. Pick one of the following effects. You can, for the rest of the turn, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by the enemy units while they're in combat, or you can heal D3 to friendly Stormcast units that are within combat range. And obviously it's unique as well. Thoughts on Tornus?
I think I'm going to have to revise I prefer the non-named versions because Tornus is really good. As I say, I think he feels like he's one of those characters that might get pointed out of seeing much tabletop, because he's an 8 wound hero on a 3-up save, notably 5 control score. I think that's pretty strong for an infantry hero. Good range attack, not great because it's single, so the tyranny of low numbers of dice, but he's got a decent range attack. He's very good in combat, and then I'm a big fan of the rally on 9 dice. I really am, particularly given that if you're investing in Tornus, you're probably investing in a bunch of Ruination Chamber units at that point as well. So you're probably going to see 1 or 2 reinforced units of prosecutors, maybe some of the what are the executioner dudes called?
Which one?
The infantry from the
Ruination guys.
Yeah.
Starts with reclusions.
Reclusions. Again, those are very durable units. Particularly with you're going to have a 3-up save, you're going to have multi-wound models, you're going to have a 5-up ward on occasion, 6-up ward potentially as well. So you've got durable units and the ability to several abilities to get you out of combat as well. So you're often going to have the opportunity to use that rally command, and he can give you 3 extra dice so that you're just bringing back more and more. I like the Light of Sigmar. I mean, the whole Knight-Azyros idea for the old version, remember, with the guy with his lantern, you would shine it on yourself or your opponent. This is obviously aimed at buffing your characters or your units. Shame it's on a 3-up, but -1 to hit is pretty good, and obviously more healing to add to the suite of healing that the Stormcaster's already got. And maybe would have liked to see a ward on him to have him hang around a little bit more, because I feel like he's going to be a bit of a magnet for people actually trying to get at you with them if you're running Tornus. But I do like him. I think he's got utility.
Yeah, I think Tornus is again, Stormcast is spot for choice when it comes to heroes. This to me is in that what I assume is Gardas price. So it won't be as expensive as Indrasa or Prime or Bastion, but it's going to be around that 170 to 230 kind of range. Like you because any more than I don't know 250, and I think you're pushing it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, but I can see some utility. I can see some utility for him. I'm assuming like these Ruination Chamber heroes, and their regiments are probably going to be Ruination Chamber units. That's typically how these things follow. So he's a good support piece who can do some damage on his own as well. So I think there's some utility for him for sure.
Yeah, and it unlocks those Ruination Chamber heroes a little more, I'm assuming. So that's good. Again, is this auto include? I don't think so. I think it's a good choice, but I don't think it'd be just like, again, my list is going to start here unless I was doing Ruination, and maybe if I was going hard on my prosecutors, maybe this is my prosecutor hero and I go double reinforced prosecutors, maybe.
I could see that.
What are your thoughts?
I think I like prosecutors, I like the way they play. So I could see, I'm with you. I don't know whether he's auto include, but I could see some value in him keeping those prosecutor units up between a heal and the extra rally. I think there's some opportunity there. And as I say, whilst he doesn't slap, he doesn't punch above his weight. He punches at his weight. So it's not like you're missing out on any combat power if you take it.
I'll tell you what this does really nicely, because I've been running, me being the Timmy that I am, I've been running a unit of 4 Stormdrake Guard.
Okay.
Like have this idiot running around following them. There's an extra source of heal. Giddy up. Like, giddy up. It's a good little hero. Obviously does well. Like the profile is very generous too, like the shooting and the melee.
Yep.
Yeah, I won't receive the rally benefits, but could be worth it. I think, outside of Ruination, it's still got it's got opportunity. And then I guess the alternative, James, and again, let's test your theory, is the Knight-Azyros, which doesn't have the shooting attack. The profile isn't as generous for the melee attack. It does have a light, which is a little different. Sorry, you've got the light in the dark ability. You do have the light of Sigmar, so that rule in combat is still the same. But this light in the dark, which is the key ability difference, is pick a friendly prosecutor's unit wholly within 12 inches to be the target at the end of the turn. Roll a dice on a 3-up. If the target is in combat, the target can immediately use the retreat ability and not take any mortals. Alternatively, if the target isn't in combat, the target can immediately use a normal move after, as if it was your movement phase.
Yeah. I mean, I love the ability. I'm very sad it's on a 3-up, but because that means you don't build your tactics around it going off, but at the same time, it's so strong. Like that's, I think just for the existence of this rule and the fact that it'll keep your opponent honest, they will have to assume you're going to hit a 3-up at the end of any turn, so yours and theirs, to be able to move that unit of prosecutors. So I think if you're double reinforced prosecutors, purely for the utility that light in the dark ability gives you, this is the way you're leaning. He doesn't do nearly as much damage, like no shooting attack, rend 1 on his 5 attacks. He's 1.5 Soul Sworn Brotherhood in terms of like damage output. 6 wounds. The 12-inch move is obviously good. Control score 5 still nice. But you have him for those light in the dark and light of Sigmar abilities, and obviously Ruination Chamber. That is an excellent ability. And I think talking about that ability specifically, the resistance roll. Now that with the FAQ change to covering fire, they are actually selecting a unit at that point, which potentially means you're ignoring covering fire. That might be one for us to
that's a Games Workshop. That's a Games Workshop FAQ. Yeah. Matt, come sort us out. That one is a. I'm not. Don't be taking that to your tournament immediately. I want to mull that one over.
Yeah, do. But that was me and just when that FAQ came out, I was like, does this mean my Ruination Chamber thing stops it? But anyway, leaving that to one side, Light in the Dark, superb ability. The fact that it's on a 3, whilst it's a shame that you have to roll for it, it kind of means it's almost like tempting your opponent to risk you not getting that 3 up, you know? So I think Light in the Dark is a real standout ability. Between this, the ability that Iridan has, and the ability from the terrain piece, that's where I see the mobility of the Stormcast coming in now. That's where I see them bouncing around the board in a way that I've always envisioned that they should be doing. I love it.
I have a counterpoint.
Okay.
Because in theory, I like Light in the Dark, but there's a little thing that's going off in my head. If I want this so bad, why not take Bastion? Get the automatic, guaranteed, free move at the start of the deployment phase. Then I've got the generous movement characteristic, the 3d6 charge. Do I want to have this as Azyros hugging the prosecutors for a 3-up move? Yes, it's a different sequence. One is in deployment, one is in, at the end of the turn. But I just begs, like, if I really want the movement shenanigans, when do I find the most value? I could countercharge on a 3d6. I don't know. For me, I prefer Bastion. If I'm looking at the Light in the Dark rule, the Light of Sigmar is good. I think I still probably agree that Tornus is probably the better choice. And if I really wanted Light in the Dark, I'm probably going Bastion. That's just me personally.
I'm thinking of having both of them. I'm thinking of having Bastion as my general's regiment, and Knight-Azyros as the second character. I'm putting my reinforced prosecutor units in with the Knight-Azyros.
I think I prefer Tornus. I think if I was going to, because I've been building that second unit of prosecutors right now. I think I'd chuck my prosecutors in Tornus. I don't know. I just like the extra rally stuff. The light's clearly good. The extra shooting, again, price dependent, how much points difference. For me, I'd probably lean in personally to Tornus, but let's see how points end up and obviously you get 3 extra wounds.
Two
Tornus
extra.
3.
Was it 5?
8. Oh no, it's 6. No, 6. Yeah, sorry, it is 6. Yeah.
No, you do. I imagine Tornus is going to be quite a fair few points more though.
How much more would you pay? 50?
40, 50, yeah.
Yeah, any more than that, I feel you go Azyros.
Yeah, I love that Light in the Dark ability though. Like that's one of those. Do you know what? It turns prosecutors into foxes.
Yeah. The fact that it happens at the end of the turn means I don't have to worry about power through. Mind you, prosecutors are probably not powering through anyway, but it does give you some really nice shenanigans, repositioning. It is a good rule. It just means that this Azyros has to be hugging and staying in range.
Close, yeah. I feel like you may be having him in Celestial Realm, and then you're bringing him in. So you move him up, you put them wherever you need to be. You bring him in 9 inches away, and then you charge them in beyond him. And then at that point, I think that's maybe I'm sort of really getting into my tactics of it now. But I think that's how I'm envisioning using him.
Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of really good, and again, this comes down to play style and things like that. I see it. I just feel like Tornus is worth a little more, but again, let's see where points land. All right, so we're back, and next up is our Stormstrike Palladors. These are our alternative, I guess, Palladors, and the key difference here, first off, is you will notice that it's Warrior Chamber. I want to call that one out. That surprised me. When I saw this, I was expecting this to be Vanguard Chamber, and I was thinking this might be a nice little 1-2 punch between the traditional Palladors we have and the new Palladors. Boy, was I wrong. This is Warrior Chamber, and I'll explain why I think that's important. But you've got 2 melee profiles. You've got the Stormstrike Lance Blade. I believe it's just like build it however you want to build it. They are quite cool, actually. I really did enjoy building mine. It didn't take very long. Very, very good kit to build. And then you have the Talons, which I think is a mistake, because when you look at Palladors, the hit profile is hitting on 4s.
4s, yeah.
There's no way in hell this is hitting on 5s. This is not a destruction unit. This is not a set of gits. I don't think Stormcast
is
is
a troll throwing a rock.
Stormcast. This is. I think Gargants hit on better when they're throwing a rock. They hit on better to hit rolls. I think this is wrong. My guess is it's a 4, 3 maybe, but it's probably a 4. I'd be surprised if that's not eroded. That doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah,
12-inch move, 3-up save. Let's assume it's a 5, but I think this is wrong. It doesn't seem right. I don't think Stormcast has ever hit on a 5 ever. You debuff them out of Oblivion, they still hit on 4s. Control score 2, health of 5 each. There's 3 models in a kit. So you'll notice that 1 in 3 is a musician, 1 in 3 is standard bearer, champion, obviously. And the ability they get, because they're warrior chamber, not vanguard chamber, is they can't do the little teleport shenanigans. But what they do get is if any friendly warrior chamber units have been destroyed this battle, you can re-roll charge rolls for this unit, and this unit has strike first if it charged in the same turn. What's your thoughts? I'm disappointed. I'll be brutally honest. I'm disappointed.
I don't think I'm as disappointed as you. You've got to lean into it if you want to make it work. So you need chaff or throwaway warrior chamber units.
I hate that idea. I hate that idea. And
you're giving it up. And at that point, they suddenly get decent. But before that, they're not. There's so many good heavy cavalry options, or so many heavy cavalry options in Stormcast that I'm not sure what role these fill that you shouldn't already be doing with Dracoths. If you want light cav or lighter cav, you've already got amazing Palladors. So I'm not sure what they do, but if you want to lean into it, you need to give something up in turn 1 to make them good. You're not convinced, are you?
No, I just don't need them.
No, yeah, definitely it's a place. There is like, what do you take if you're looking for this type of unit? Probably not.
I guess the key is you're building your own warrior chamber, right? If you take your current Palladors, they're sitting in your vanguard chamber. Mm-hmm. If you're doing Dracoths, you're doing them clearly in extremist chamber. Warrior chamber doesn't really have that unit, so I guess this plays into that space. But then the question is, like, look, a flat profile. Look, what? +1 Ren, so into infantry, it's Ren 2, damage 2 on the charge, which is quite nice. So I guess if I was building into warrior chamber, this probably seems decent. It does require you, I guess, to get that extra buff. You've got to kill something, so that sacrificial warrior chamber unit. So I don't know.
Just thinking what that would be. I think you're using these as almost like a counter-charging unit in your own backfield, because you've sent something up, it's got killed, they're now buffed up, and at that point when your opponent comes over to you, you're counter-charging with these guys and they're good. But there's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of clauses within that Ride for Vengeance ability.
Yeah, I almost assume that I'm not using Rider of Vengeance. I'm just using the flat profile on the charge. Yeah. If I find myself in the situation of Riders, that's a bonus to me. But I'm not factoring in my decision getting that reroll the charges, and or strike first, because and again, if I really want strike first, I'd go Dracoth with, like Tempestors or Pestors, like with the Lord Celestin on Dracoth to get that 3+ strike first if I wanted that, and at least I'm not killing something in my troops. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold. Love the models,
lovely models,
and maybe because I'm not heavy into warrior chamber. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I guess that role is filled by dragons, by other Palladors, by other.
It is
Cav.
It's the cav for the warrior chamber. If you're going, I'm going to be Thunderhead host, I'm leaning into the warrior chamber, then perhaps they've got a role. And, yeah, I'm not blown away at all by them.
Like, yeah, like even like I'd take a chariot. Like for the price that I'm paying. I don't know how much. What am I paying? 2 to 250 somewhere, probably somewhere around that mark.
I don't know.
I'm ballparking here, right? Let's assume that it's around a similar cav. But would I take a chariot over this personally? Yeah, chariot. Yeah.
You can't play Stormcast and not love chariots. All we've got to do is just wait until the points come down to the point where they're reasonable, and then you've got loads of them, and they suddenly become great.
Look, I'm sure some smart person in the chat or in Discord is going to prove me wrong and probably spam the hell out of them and have, like, again, what we're doing, prosecutors, like 2 units of 6 of these, absolutely wild, build into it. I think, yeah. But I'm looking at this as a flat war scroll, so I don't want to harp on too much of it. It's fine. I just don't need this role filled. I just don't have. I've got dragons. I've got Dracoths. I've got other Palladors. I've got other models. All right.
I'm with you. I'm probably less down on them than you are, but at the same time, I'm struggling to see how they fit and are better than other things in similar roles.
I think in my mind, I just wanted them as Vanguard Chambers. They do 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I think in my mind, that's what I was hoping for, because then I would lean more into Vanguard, but it's not. So I'm going to move along because I'm just having a whinge. What is not whinge worthy is very, very cool is the return. And anyone who watched the Skaven preview or kept an eye on Skaven, you saw one of the Underworld's warbands return. So they unique to them. So in the past, those they have been like a unique character with their friends. They have now become a unit of infantry wizards. So what do you get? Three models in the Stormcoven. They've got a shooting attack, they've got a melee attack, they have a decent, move 5, save 3, health 3. Quite nice. So you got nine wounds in a wizard unit. You get 2 abilities. You get one being gather the Aether, so add 1 to the unit's power level while it's contesting an objective. And then the other one being the spell cast, so Aether Shock, casting value of 7. If the target, so you either can pick a friendly or pick an enemy. If you pick a friendly unit as the target, they get strike first. If you pick an enemy unit, they get strike last. This is a cool rule. This is more of a guarantee than what we've seen from those bloody Palladors.
When I saw this in the book, I went and looked at the legends, these in Legends, and I hadn't looked at them in Legends, and they're the same as they were when they were legended, which I'm hoping means they're about the same points level, because this unit does a lot. It really does. Look at that shooting. Like, yeah, they wound on 4s. Okay, fair enough. That's 6 D3 damage shots coming out of this unit. I mean, if they're not standing on an objective, then you're wasting your time. So there are 2 power level wizard, and that spell, admittedly, like 7s are tough, so you probably want to be using the place of power with them. But you can imagine that, like, your opponent's bearing down on your last couple of units. You've got a screen. You've got these guys behind, maybe a hero with them, and you're like, okay, in your turn, I'm going to cast my spell. I get it off. Okay, I'm going to give my screen strike first. Come at me, I think they're really good. They do a lot. They're pretty good in combat. They're pretty good shooting. They've got decent spells, probably 2 casts. Do you know what? They're going to be hanging around your terrain feature. So if you don't like it, you can move across the other side of the board as well.
I was literally going to say that. Chuck it on your terrain feature, set it up on an objective, make it close to a terrain feature. Then you can teleport it towards that place of power or onto another objective.
Yeah.
Use that 8-inch range plus, your manifestations and cast things out. This is a potent unit. And because it's not a hero anymore, because it's not a unique kind of little combination, this is going to slot into a regiment really nicely. I'd pay 250 if I was ballparking.
As legends, they were 210.
Okay. Yeah,
in
so
the
250, 250 somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I like them. They're really cool.
Yeah, I think again, I don't want to say the auto include, but I think it definitely adds another dimension.
Given that they are a unit, I mean, an army that's 8 squads of this with a couple of heroes,
God,
you know, that might not be terrible. It would be awful, but it would be amazing at the same time.
I assume you can't reinforce this unit. I would imagine that's a rule that you've seen in other.
Question.
No, like you've seen that in the past where like they've said
that's
you
true.
can't reinforce it.
We'd have to see the battle profiles release to know that, but I'd assume you're right because
yeah, a unit of 6 of these, like this is an easy reinforced little. Yeah,
no, they're cool.
This is great.
They're really good.
Yeah, good unit, not amazing. Again, not auto include, but it's a good choice. It's a very good choice, especially if you're not taking like a Krondys or you are looking for magic and
you're
not
reading my
paying
mind
that
there. Yeah, you're reading my mind there. I don't know that there's space for Krondys with all the new stuff, and maybe this is your wizard to ensure that you've still got that capability on the battlefield.
Yeah, and it does bring a different piece because like your other really good wizard choice is Lord Arcanum.
Yeah, I think it's the only one left now, isn't it? There's not many. There's certainly not many smaller wizards left in the book, which is one of the reasons why I think this type of unit is coming back from Legends.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff are priest based, which is funny because our manifestations are all wizardy ones. Cool.
Oh, is that last new unit? Wow. Okay.
I think that's our last unit. So actually, I jumped ahead. I actually meant to bring up. Well, I'm going to skip this. Well, where is your war scroll? I'm going to pause for a second. Where did I just put that? I brought up your list.
Okay.
Your list. All right. That was a butchering and a half.
It's all good.
So, it's your list. I skip it.
Hiding.
Oh, did I unhide? Oh, I didn't unhide it. I'm an idiot.
Hey, there we go.
All right, so
yeah.
You know what? I'm not even gonna cut it. That's how funny that was. All right, so I'm gonna own that mistake. So James, before we get into Armies of Renown, I do want to ask you really quickly. This is one of the last lists you've run, and obviously Stormcast, we've got a million lists we've got cooking. But this is the last list you ran, right? You know, you ran Krondys, Praetors, you got your Vanguard Raptors with crossbow, long strike crossbows, you've got your Lord-Vigilant, you've got your Prosecutors Reinforced, you've got your Relictor, Vexillor, and then the Questor Soul Swarm. Based on what we've gone through so far, before we go into Armies of Renown, does your list change much? Like I know we've talked a lot about, you know, the Stormcoven. We talked about the what's it called, the Tornus. We've talked about the value of like there's been a couple of bunch of things, even the new terrain feature. Yeah. Any thoughts on how your list may change based on the new stuff?
Yes, I think Krondys is probably out, and that's just because I'm going through that excited phase about hey, I've got so much other new cool stuff that I want to take a look at. So I'm thinking Krondys out. I'm thinking that either Bastion or Iridan in. So the new named Big Bird
Birdman
hero, or Condor Bro was the other way I heard them described. Depending on his points, maybe him or Bastion. And then I'm backfilling the wizard with the Stormcoven, I think. Vanguard Raptors long strikes are still staying in there. With the recent FAQ or the recent changes to priority target, I don't know that necessarily they're going to be the ones going in the general regiment, because they can get hurt, and not having that +1 to hit and wound on everything makes a difference. That's that first regiment. The second regiment,
do Praetors drop? If you're dropping,
and the Praetors go. So yeah, that's basically where I'm finding my points, is swapping Krondys out for a different hero and dropping the Praetors. Sorry, I should caveat that with it's not Thunderhead anymore. I think I'm going straight into Redemption Brotherhood into the.
They haven't seen that yet.
No, sorry, I didn't mean that. What I meant was the.
They can. You can.
I meant the Sentinels of Bleak Citadels, the one that leans into Ruination Chamber. So,
yes. Yep.
So basically, I'm looking to pick a unit to get that 5-up ward each turn, because I'm dropping a lot of the warriors, the warrior chamber out of the list, and reinforcing the number of Ruination Chamber units I've got in the list as well. So Vigilant on Gristalk is probably out, and in is either the Azyros or Tornus. So either generic or named Knight-Azyros, and then looking to put a second unit of prosecutors into the army. Relictor potentially comes out, because if you've got Illidan in, you don't need another priest, because Illidan has his own amazing War Scroll spell and War Scroll prayer and access to the Stormcast prayer lore. But potentially, if I'm taking Bastion instead of Illidan, then I would still try and put a priest, Lord Relictor, in there. Soulsworn, I feel their value's gone down a little bit because of the terrain feature. So you don't remember, they were great because if they were your screening unit, they're protecting your home base. And what was amazing was they could teleport themselves off later in the battle. Now you can do that because of the terrain feature. So I'd see that potentially changing to a cheaper option. So a reinforced unit of Liberators or a reinforced unit of Vanquishers or Vindictors, any one of the 3 basic infantry units. Night Vexor's probably out as well.
I was just thinking that if you're gonna drop, I could see the Vex. I mean, the Vexor's still really good value, but like, do you need it as much, especially with no Krondus? Maybe, probably not.
Exactly, and the
healing of the Azyros. So
you get healing from the Azyros, and also I with the nerfs to Morbid Conjuration, I'll drop the Morbid Conjuration and probably take the Elemental as well for the Life Swarm, so that you get healing from that, as well as having like Gnashing Jaws to nom around the board.
And Burning Head, and
Burning Head just to be in there for a thing, So I think quite a few changes, but still keeping that basic concept of wanting to play in every phase. So have a wizard, have a priest, have a reinforced shooting unit, have something that slaps in combat, then have something that's quite anvil-y and protecty to guard your new important valuable piece of terrain as well. So I still think the concept for the list is similar, but with a bit more mobility from Azyros or Illidan to bounce units around and move at the end of turns. Because like anytime you move out of sequence, you're putting your opponent under pressure. So I think that's the way that I'm probably looking to take it going forward.
I'll be curious to see if other units get points changes, both up or down, right? Vanguard Raptors, super popular. They seem like they're at risk of going up. Krondus, at risk going up.
Yeah.
There's some units that are just not auto-include, but definitely becoming really popular. And then some things that just completely you don't see play very often. So I wonder if we'll get points discounts. But I guess based on what we currently know, I like it. I probably have very similar ideas. I think Krondus, I'm like, but then again, I run Indrasa as well, and she stays. She stays.
She stays even in the new book for you?
I just love her. And I love this idea. I love this idea of having the Indrasa with 2 units of prosecutors and maybe the Azyros as well, or Tornus. I don't know. I'm going to play around with it properly, but I'll be curious to see after where the lists settle now, that given that Nighthaunt and Lumineth have had some tweaks, will we see that out? And what's our answer to those, or do we see some new big bads starting to appear? Let's see.
I think Stormcoven becoming your wizard and not being a hero means that Stormcast can potentially go into that 2-drop fat middle of where most armies are falling now, whereas previously I struggled to build a decent list that was less than 3, whereas now I feel like you can get into that 2-drop zone. So I think you're maybe at, and whilst I don't think that's a be all and end all, I don't think it's the most important thing in the world. It is nice to have a little bit more control over that turn priority.
Yeah, it helps. And I guess the terrain feature as well helps. We put stuff in the reserve, put stuff on the board, keep it really reserved around our terrain feature, and then we can still be aggressive when we want to be. But let's see where the kind of things land. Speaking of landing, though, we have 2 new armies of renown. So there was also previewed on Warcom today, when you can assume when I'm recording, there was the Regiment of Renown. So if people are thinking about Stormcast outside of Stormcast, you can bring a little dragon build, which is super sweet. But we're going to focus on what we can do. And there are 2 different armies of renown, in addition to the Dragon Wing. What's it called?
Skywing.
The
Skywing.
So you've now got three armies of renown. So armies of renown, the first one being the Ruination Brotherhood that James has alluded to once or twice. Very excited by this. So you are traditionally giving up your allegiance ability. So read the text at the top. This is not story time with Coach. On the right-hand side, you will see roster options. So you are limited with the units you can take. So in this one, with Ruination, Iridan, and it must be included, and it must be your general. So you must have Iridan. Any Ruination Chamber, Liberators, a Knight Questors, any other non-hero warrior chamber units. You can't use Regiments of Renown. There's no comment there about the terrain feature, so I'm going to assume that you can use the terrain feature. I'm sure to be clarified. The Skaven one specifically says no terrain feature. This one doesn't have the same rules. Okay. So I'm going to assume, just for the purpose of this discussion, you get your terrain feature. I think the Trog herd gets their terrain feature, their Loon Shrine. So I think there's evidence. Anyway, what do you get for your Ruination Brotherhood? So we're focused purely on Ruination Chamber with a couple of little friends we can bring in. Ancient Aura, pick a friendly Ruination Chamber unit. They get a 5 ward.
Yeah, that's the same as the Bleak Sentinels. Yeah,
correct. But you're giving that up. So I guess we've retained it. So yeah. Good. Hallowed Presence, while friendly warrior chamber units are wholly within 12 inches of any friendly Ruination Chamber, they get a 6-up ward. Not bad.
Yeah, you can see, you're already starting to see where my thinking is going with this, because a certain Stormcoven is a non-hero warrior chamber unit, and is therefore eligible to fit into this army of renown.
Well, tell me what you're thinking so far. Then we'll go to Temper of the Floor. But what are you thinking so far?
I'm thinking that basically this army of renown is building into primarily Ruination Chamber, but adding warrior chamber units in there, particularly your Anvil unit. So your reinforced liberators, or equivalent, but also non-hero warrior chambers includes the Stormcoven. So your wizard is potentially dropping in here as well. So I think you've got the bones of a very good army coming in here.
Do you think you see a role for Palladors coming in, given that they're warrior chamber non-hero?
I don't know, maybe. Okay. But again, you're still going to be held back by the. Still don't think Stormstrike Palladors in here, to be honest.
Just because they become tanky, right? A 6-up ward, 5 wounds apiece. Yeah. Nice little solid mix. Anyway, you got some little combinations here between warrior and Ruination. 2 other rules we'll call out: the Temper of the Floor. So once per turn, end of any turn, you can use this ability at the end of each turn. Each friendly non-hero Ruination Chamber that fought can pick one of the following rules. If they're guided, if the target unit is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ruination hero, return 1 slain model. If they're tormented, you get to choose, obviously. If their target is not wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ruination Chamber hero, it becomes tormented until the end of the next turn. While the unit is tormented, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons, but it cannot contest objectives or use commands. Interesting rule.
Yeah. It's a bit bookkeeping-y.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. I like returning models, obviously. Who doesn't? Particularly like with your more tanky units, you're adding back in a good number of wounds on a 3-up save and a 5-up ward. So you're giving yourself a lot more durability and staying in the fight. And then I don't hate the tormented. It is a slight disadvantage, but it's a nice sweetener that you get extra attacks for not being able to use your command abilities.
I guess if you're going hard into reclusions
are the obvious one, aren't they?
Yeah. You're bringing back 3 health models.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't bring back a unit. What's the Stormcast rule where when a unit dies, you spend the CP and you bring them back? You don't get that ability because you don't get your faction rule, so you sacrifice that. But between Tornus with the extra 3 rally dice, the Temper of the Floor, the 5-up ward, you've got a lot of survivability and durability. Bringing back models.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. I think you're gonna miss the bringing back a unit.
Yeah, there's a couple of
maybe you're running smaller units in this type of setup rather than your reinforced units that we kind of automatically go for in Stormcast.
So I would have thought the opposite. If I'm not bringing back models for a CP, I almost feel like I'm
bringing back the unit. So if you don't if you imagine a unit of 6, you're going to bring back 3. If you just have units of 3, then you would only bring back. Does it say rounding up or rounding down? It says rounding up. So you bring back 2, I suppose. Yeah, you could be right.
But you've lost that rule. You've lost that rule because that's an allegiance ability to Stormcast.
Yeah.
So you almost want to reinforce those reclusions, for example, to increase your chance of those. The rally dice and the tempering of the floor.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
If you got that rule, different story, but
yeah.
And the last rule, before we get into like the traits and stuff, is you got the Entropic Screech. So this is your rampage for Iridan, I imagine. Pick a friendly Ruination chamber.
Yeah.
I'm like, is there any other monsters?
I
suppose you could take.
It literally says non. Does it say non here? Yeah, no.
That's Warrior Chamber.
Yeah, there's no other monsters.
So no, a friend.
Oh, you could have the generic one.
Yeah, the Lord-Vigilant on the Morrgryph. So you could do both. Anyway, the rampage is what is it? Ruination Chamber monster is not use a rampage. Pick 3 enemy units in combat on a roll a d3 for each target. On a 2-up, inflict a number of mortal damage equal to the target. This unit can use this ability. What?
Yeah, so you can only use one. So the reason I think this is Iridan only really is that the generic Morrgryph already has a rampage, whereas Iridan doesn't, because his end of turn ability I don't think is a rampage.
No, it's actually, yeah, good question. Was it a rampage? Yes, it is. It is. Dark Flight is a rampage. So you could do it.
That's how they get you with these regiments, these armies of Renown, isn't it? Yeah, because it's good.
Interesting.
Like, this is 3 units, D3 mortal wounds. It's pretty good.
On essentially a 3-up.
Yes, yeah, effectively a 3-up. It's 0 to 3 mortal wounds.
Before I move into the other rules for the Ruination Chamber, any thoughts so far? I know you've been excited about talking about this one.
Yeah.
Where's your head at so far?
I don't know whether it becomes the choice for me based on the way that I'm formulating a list, because you miss out on one of my important elements, which is a solid reinforced shooting unit. But having said that, I think there's a lot to be there. There is a lot of positives for it. So I wouldn't rule it out, and I'm sure we're going to see some powerful builds, some competitive builds within this Army of Renown.
So who are our shooting units? So we've got our Vanguard, obviously Hurricanes and Long Strikes, where they're
yeah.
So they're Vanguard chambers, so you can't get them.
Can't get them. You can get Vanquishers.
Vanquish. I was going to say, because Tempestors are obviously Extremist chamber.
Yeah.
But you can get your
you can get your Vanquishers, and they'll be giving out your +1s to hit.
Plus, your Prosecutors will give you shooting attacks.
Your Prosecutors, yeah. I mean, I don't love the Prosecutors shooting attack with it being a single attack per model, but I think Vanquishers is because you can take those because they're a non-hero warrior chamber unit. They might be an option. You're not deep striking them because of
Vigilors.
Sorry, Vigilors. Yeah, Vanquishers are the sword guys, aren't they?
I'm like, when did Vanquishers get a shooting attack?
Yeah, no, the Vigilors. Yeah, there's too many V something or others. Yeah. So the Vigilors and giving out their +1 to hit could well be an option in here. So maybe that's a list idea.
Yeah. Plus they give the +1 to hit rolls. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think they've been hugely represented so far. So maybe they're in line for becoming a more economical choice as well.
Yeah, that's a very political way of saying points discount. Economical, yeah. If you also go Ruination Chamber, you get 1 heroic trait, 1 artifact, 3 prayers. So the heroic trait, once per battle, start of any turn. If the unit has the Ruination Chamber ability, you can use this ability more than once per turn, blah, blah, blah. Artifact is the Hallowed Scrolls. If this unit is infantry, it has a ward of 5 up. Otherwise, it's a 6 up. And then you've got 3 prayers. What are your thoughts on these ones? I'm not going to read out the prayers. I think the prayers are prayers are good.
Prayers are good. The heroic trait, yes, once per battle, but like ignoring anything on a 4 up is obviously strong, and doing that twice in a turn is going to be pretty huge. The Hallowed Scrolls artifact is kind of situational in that you probably want it on an infantry character or an infantry hero, which means it's probably only going to be the Knight-Azyros. But I suppose actually you could have the Vigilant on foot.
Yeah, I was going to say you little Vigilant man.
Yeah, the little guy. But then the prayers are pretty good. Like Mortar's Embrace is a kind of like keep people honest prayer, because they know that if they get within 18 inches of that priest, so there's a chance that they can get picked up. And Murderous Flock that's great, isn't it? That's a horde clearer. And then
I love Raven's Flight. +2 to movement, and on an 8+ you get the run and charge.
Yeah, like that makes you very, very quick indeed. So the prayers are very good. They're different to the Stormcast base lore, but probably equally strong. So that's
you lose Translocate, you lose Blessed
Weapon,
Weapon,
you lose Blessed Weapon, you lose the heal, but you get these 3, which are they're much more grimdarker than the original Stormcast ones. So
where do you land on this Army of Renown?
I'm sure that better list builders than me are going to come up with something really clever from this that's very, very powerful. I think it fits that really nice spot in that it's got a lot of flavor and it's still going to give you a solid performance on the tabletop, but I don't think it's like S tier blowing people out of the water.
No, it's no King Broad Stomp in 3rd edition.
No.
It is a good Army of Renown. Traditionally, they've rocks or diamonds. This is closer to diamonds than it is rocks.
I agree.
It's a playstyle choice, in my opinion. Like, if you love Ruination Chamber and you're willing to sacrifice some of these units that are not available to you because they're in Vanguard Chamber or Extremist Chamber, or they're heroes that are sitting in Warrior Chamber, if you're willing to make those sacrifices, both at an allegiance, a spell, an artifact, a unit selection, you don't need your long strikes, you don't need your dragons, you don't need blah. I think this is good. Is it worth the trade-off? Personally, no. I'm not leaning into Ruination. If I did, it's great. But personally, I probably wouldn't play this outside of TTS. Personally.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more positive than you about it.
Oh, I'm not against it. It's just not my playstyle. Like, my playstyle probably leads into other units. It's not a this is bad. It's just that I like other units, and I prefer the other Army of Renown, because again, I'm a Timmy and you'll see it in a second. They still do fine. Like, it's fine. Like, it'll do well. It's just, you've got to really love your Ruination, which you clearly do. Me, not so much.
I'm particularly with the changes to Ruination in this book. I think they're really good.
Look, I'm trying to make Extremist Chamber work. It's driving me insane. It's driving me insane.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's got the love in this book.
Nah, it's the redheaded stepchild. Like, no one cares about it. All right, other one. So I'm going to preface this. James called this the super best friends, or this is the Avengers.
Big friends, yeah.
This is the Avengers. I love it. It's Heroes of the First Forge. It writes itself. Bastion has to be your general. Bastion has to be in the list. They meant to be general. Then your other options is Prime, Karazai, Krondus, Indrasa, Warrior Chamber, Praetors, Annihilators, both Shield and Grandhammer. No Regiments of Renown. This is Hero Hammer, and I love it. What do you get? You get Celestial Realm. So first off, the other one, no Celestial Realm. So you're on the table. Just there's a reminder. Celestial Realm, you've got that. You should know this rule by now. Punch Through is a charge phase ability. So pick a friendly infantry unit in combat that is not charged. They can immediately use the charge, and they can move through enemy models when doing so. You have Scions. You should know Scions. The other one is the Summon the Storm. If a friendly Bastion is on the battlefield and not set up this turn, you can pick a friendly Stormcast unit that's in the Celestial Realm. Set up the unit wholly within 6 inches of friendly Bastion and more than 3 from all enemy units. If the target is a unit of Annihilators, again, both choices, for the rest of the turn, that target counts as having used Scions of the Storm ability for the purposes of Blazing Impact. I love this. I love this. It's so dumb.
It's super entertaining. Like, this is how I've played a lot of Stormcast in 3rd edition. Was basically exactly like this.
This is I'm going to a tournament. I want to get on the beers and I want to have a good time. You'll probably go 2 and 3 or 3 and 2, but I wouldn't expect it to go any higher than 3 and 2. But this is a bloody hilarious army. This is an army on parade. Let's have a lot of fun. I want to run all the big boys and girls.
Yeah, I think you've got to take Bastion, a C Prime, some Praetors, and a bunch of Annihilators, and just like throw them around the board.
Yep.
It's really cool.
Yep.
I don't know how competitive it is, although a mutual acquaintance of ours thinks it's going to be a complete terror.
If you can't handle Hero Hammer,
yeah.
Look, you could go Krondus Karazai. There's 1,000 points approximately.
True.
And then put 1,000 points.
You've got to have Bastion. So yeah.
Add Bastion, and then you flavor. It could be a couple of units of Liberators for those like Scorch Earth, like 8 or 6 objectives. You could go all hard on.
I don't think you can do that. No, your only bodies are Annihilators.
Oh Oh, yes. Sorry, Warrior Chamber. I saw Warrior Chamber, and I forgot that it said Heroes. Yes. Well, in that case, you then just drop all the Annihilators while your enemy is worried about 2 dragons on the table.
Yeah, 6 inches away from them, as it turns out.
It's so dumb. I love it. I love it. Look, I'd run it at my local. I wouldn't take it to a tournament unless I was just going. If I was going to LVO and I just wanted to just kick it and have fun.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going top tables with it. But you would prove me wrong. And then from a unit perspective, so from a additional stuff point of view, you've got a heroic trait, so you can add 1 to attack characteristics for units' melee weapons while they're wholly within 6 inches of Bastion. You've got a artifact where you declare pick an enemy unit in combat with the unit with the target. Roll a dice on a 4-up. You shut down wards for the rest of the battle. And then you've got 1 spell, 2 prayers. No, sorry, 2 spells, 1 prayer, and then you get the Everblaze Comet.
Yeah.
Has your opinion changed?
It is not that strong, is it? Like this page is not quite so good.
D3 mortals, add 2 to the movement characteristic. Like they're fine. Shutting off wards is nice, but
Shutting off wards is nice, no doubt. The spell law, I suppose it's mostly going to be Krondys that would be casting this, wouldn't it? Because your only other option is going to be a Knight Encounter, I think.
You mean the Arcanum?
Sorry, yeah, your Knight Arcanum, the one that wasn't legended. The
the Arcanum, the Knight Arcanum, the one that does endless spells.
The one that does endless spells, yeah.
Yeah, there's no other native wizards. Which in that case, the +2 again, Everblaze Comet 1.
Yeah.
No. I'm taking Crossbine.
Taking that at that point, aren't you? Like you don't have any other options, so.
Yeah. No, I think you could still take universal manifestations. I think that's still an option.
Okay,
that's always been. I'm pretty sure. It's just that you wouldn't be able to get the disc or the swords that no one uses. The sword tornado.
Oh yeah, a hammer tornado.
Yeah, whatever. Like no one uses it. I've never seen it on the table. It's fine. This is cool. It's fun.
The disc, yeah. If you've got the Arcanum, you can hop on the disc. Oh, but you couldn't take that in this, could you? So
no, because it's unless it's an Arcanum. Which anyway, I think we both agree this is fun. It's certainly not the most competitive. I think we both agree Ruination of the 2 is the most competitive. But my gosh, you have fun with this one.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Any final comments or thoughts on this? I mean,
you're leaning into Annihilators there, and so you're doing Grand Hammers and you're dropping them 6 inches away and you're going to town.
Yes. Yep. So that is the Battletome. Now, obviously, you guys can read the Battletome. Otherwise, if we haven't talked about it, I guess it hasn't changed, or at least we didn't notice any changes. It is a cool book. There's like Path to Glory. There is a whole heap of lore, some really interesting maps, actually. Like there's a couple of fold outs where there's some maps and things. So it's very heavy. Like there's a nice little map art.
Nice.
Yeah, it's actually quite a good book. So check it out. Again, assume you're going to get it. Got a couple of burning questions for you from Discord, and then we can kind of wrap things up if that works for you. So just reading them out. Oh, sorry. So people asked, I can answer some of these. So what's on the second page of the Reclusion's War Scroll listing? The answer is art. It's just photos. So Because if you look at the index, people are like, "Oh, why has the Reclusion's got 2 pages?"
Yeah.
Just art. It's just art. What happened to the Dracothian Skywing Army of Renown? Nothing. Well, it's not in the book, but that's a good question actually. Is it? That's not. No, because you've got the Regiment of Renown.
Yeah.
But I mean, unless I'm told otherwise, I assume it's still legal.
I don't know.
That's a good question. It's actually a really good question. Like, will GW legend it now? Surely not. It's not in the book.
Okay.
Not in the book. It's a good question, actually. I thought it was a simple question. Actually, no, that's a very complex one. Do we think the new regiments of Renown have any obvious pairing synergies with other factions? So we've got the dragons, right? Let's entertain this one for a second. Where do you think actually there's 2 of them actually. There's another one called the Horizontal Seekers, which is a Vanguard Chamber 1.
Horizon Seekers, I love that.
Horizon Seekers, yes. So you get the Aquila, you get a unit of Vanguard Hunters with 5 models, and a unit of 3 Vanguard Palladors with 3 models. So any thoughts on either the Stormwing or the Horizontal Seekers as who would benefit from taking them?
Yeah. So I think both of them offer a lot of mobility. So particularly order armies that maybe don't have it. So Fire Slayers is the one that jumps to mind. Like giving a whole bunch of mobility and objective snagging, or even a couple of dragons running around doing nasty things to people inside a Fire Slayer's army that is otherwise bunkered up, standing on its objectives is a definite use case for those 2 regiments of Renown. Maybe with cities as well. If you're taking a gunline cities unit, you've got those guys as well to harry.
That's what I was thinking. Gunline cities. It might play nicely into Ideneth with some of the movement shenanigans, but I guess, do you need them? Like, you've already got some good movement. Do you need this type of movement? Question mark. KO? No, probably not.
KO have got a ton of movement now. That's the
Sylvaneth? Probably not.
I don't think so. Same with Daughters of Cain. I think they've got inbuilt things that do very similar roles.
I was going to say Daughters potentially if you didn't run Morathi. If you had no Morathi, you could run the dragons, for example. I wouldn't need the Horizontal Seekers, but maybe the dragons in a non-Morathi Daughters.
Yep, that's a possibility.
Seraphon, probably not.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing non-teleporting Seraphon, then they could be an option.
Lumineth.
More Lumineth. Take extra Lumineth.
I don't think Lumineth need it.
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Look, there's a couple of good ones. Cool. Do the new War Scrolls open up new combinations? Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've got any answers to that, just like thoughts, but absolutely. Exactly, I think
like Tornus, the Knight-Azyros, Iridan, they all open up new synergies, and like Illidan's Prayer, the bonuses that gives to the redemption folks, to the Ruination chamber, and potentially Redemption Brotherhood if you're playing it in that way. Azyros with the lights, Tornus with his single light, but then the extra dice on the rally. Like, there's lots going on. There's lots of synergies opened up by the new heroes in particular.
I'd also say the biggest change is going to be the terrain feature.
Of course, yeah.
Because the way you now think of Stormcast and the way where in the past, again, you've thought about translocate, you've thought about just, different ways to use Scion and who goes onto the table. And once they're on the table, what do you need to do? You talked about the Soul Sworn Questors. We talked about the value of, some of the teleporting in Vanguard Chamber. This is all out the window. This is now, you can still run it, but do you need it now? Do you need the Relictor? Do you need translocate? Do you need... This is now up for debate and discussion, which I'm excited to see where we land.
Yeah, so am I. I think it's a good time to be a Stormcast player.
Yeah. And the last question I had was how many pieces of Celestial Vindicator artwork is there? I counted 2. Okay. But they seem to... But they're moving away from that. Like I know the first couple of books have all been about like Hallowed Knights, Hammers of Sigmar. I love that they've unlocked it. I've loved Gardas, but I didn't want to play Hallowed Knights. I hated that everything was Hammers of Sigmar, and they never had any like Astral Templar heroes. Like nothing was ever in those other than Hammers.
Yeah. There's not so much of a thing anymore. It's more now you putting the flavor onto whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. And that's what those different chambers exist for now.
Yeah, it works for me because I made my own custom one. So
yeah, so did I. Gold and purple. So
mine is like basically Black Templar meets Blood Angels. So it's like heavy reds with shades of black and white, which I think looks all right. If you I can look all right. So and finally,
my dudes. There you go. You get quite a decent picture of what I'm trying to do with that, can't you?
Yeah, look at us, Chariot meta, love it.
I've got an Annihilator, obviously, but he's a very dull gold, but you can see the purple there is a nice sort of contrast color to it.
Yeah, I like it. I love seeing some of those themes coming in and more than just generic what we've known. James, any final comments or thoughts, and if not, do you want to wrap us up with any shout outs of people you want to give love to? Tough crowd, clearly, but it needs some love.
That's exactly where I was going with it. Final thoughts really is that for me, this is Stormcast are going to play the way that I imagine Stormcast should have been playing, being able to bounce around the table, like appear in a bolt of lightning, charge some stuff, do some damage, hop across, disappear, get out of combat, reappear somewhere else. So I'm really excited to play with them in this new book. It's going to be good times. Shout outs to Tough Crowd, Team Canada, and every TO out there in the community who doesn't get the recognition they deserve.
Shout out. I'm done for my tournament for the year. Like I did my 130 player grand tournament. It's done for the year. I'm talking to another tier. They're like, oh, do you want to do a combined 3-day tournament with 40K? I'm like, nah. Sigmar doesn't want to do 3 days mostly. Like we barely want to do 6 games as it is, let alone 3 days. I mean, obviously there's a couple of big ones, especially the cons, but big love to all of you. I'll see you next month at the World Champs.
Yeah, see you in Atlanta. Yeah.
And for the folks who are like, we didn't go deep enough, look, we've kept to the new stuff for now. It is obviously a very heavy book. I will revisit this maybe even a couple of times. Let's see where lists land. Once the points kind of drop, we get a better idea of what the list actually look like. And I'll revisit. I'll get somebody else to come in, or James or whoever. We'll see who the champions of Sigmar are, and we'll get them in for a discussion. But if you are thinking about buying this stuff, again, Element Games, Warpfire Minis, or Gap Games, depending on where you are. Again, thank you, Games Workshop, for sending it. It's been fun to get through this. And I will chat to you all later, maybe in Atlanta, depending on where you're at. And thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AoS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1-1 on a spellcast.